Hello, everyone. This is Jim West, founder and CEO of TopCyberPro.com. And today we have a great guest, another great guest in this season. And her name is Mercedes Vasquez. I know I'm sorry about the pronunciation of your name, but without further ado, I'm going to just immediately turn it over to Mercedes. She's going to introduce herself, who she is, what she does, and where her expertise lies in cybersecurity. So, Mercedes.
Thank you so much, Jim. It's a pleasure to be with you and with your audience on your podcast. Thank you for having me. My name is Mercedes Vasquez. As you may guess from my name, I'm originally from Spain. I have been based in Kuwait in the GCC countries for close to a decade now. I'm currently the general manager at Yazquez Holding. We operate between Kuwait and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia with plans for rapid expansion across other GCC countries. And we focus on cybersecurity, responsible AI, and US-based technology. And then we have like nationwide upskilling and reskilling educational campaigns. I'm very passionate about the role of education. I would say the transformative role of education as it plays a major component to bridge the digital divide in this current fast-paced environment where everything is very much interconnected. Um, and basically, one of my main passions and something that perhaps I relentlessly advocate for is for the role of women in technology. I have had the pleasure of creating different sort of initiatives to empower women here in Kuwait and to participate in different organizations and institutions as well, to share my experience with talented professionals. I'm a frequent guest as well on the state-owned national TV channel of the state of Kuwait, Kuwait TV2, which is broadcasted by the Ministry of Information, and I address all sorts of topics related to the role of women in the economic fabric, the role of women in technology, cybersecurity, innovation, responsible AI, and all sorts of advancements in technology development and how it interconnects with different aspects of the puzzle, as I like to call it. And as far as my background is concerned, I have done corporate world, I have done e-commerce. It has been a very much multidisciplinary journey, and I'm very excited to be on your podcast again.
Oh, wonderful. So, for one, if you wouldn't mind just talking a little bit louder, I want to make sure all the listeners can hear you really well. But you got a tremendous amount of roles you've had, many hats you've worn in your career. Could you maybe expand upon more of like the types of projects and work that you do? I know you mentioned a few in your introduction, but maybe expand more on like the boards that you sit on, kind of maybe also any fun facts about your career, and then any other nonprofits you're associated with.
Yes, absolutely. So throughout my journey, as you have said, I have worn multiple hats, and that has really given me a great amount of exposure to, let's say, the 360 degrees of what an environment is. Not only when it comes to cybersecurity, but when it comes to technology, when it comes to business, when it comes to management. So I have tried to develop a more holistic sort of approach when it comes to everything I do. And again, I thank that to my background because I believe careers nowadays are not meant to be static, right? Because uh, we as humans have to adapt, evolve to circumstances and also to market demands. And so rapidly changing, pivoting, constant upskilling and reskilling within ourselves, I think it's quite important. So I have always been more of a generalist rather than a specialist. Um, and currently, something that I can disclose and that I'm very passionate about is I have recently joined an initiative by the Future Investment Initiative, which has the Public Investment Fund of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia as a founding partner. And it's in partnership with Columbia University in New York City, and it's called AI and the Future of Work. And I'm very honored to have recently joined the AI in Education Task Force with other distinguished global leaders.
Wonderful. That sounds super exciting too when you're speaking about the future, especially when with AI being the hot topic these days. You know, a good question is with all these hats you wear, all these different boards you're part of, and all these initiatives, what motivates you? What keeps you driven to do the work that you do?
Passion. I believe if you want to succeed in everything in life, the first step is to have passion about it. To me, that has always been my main like driver and inspiration, motivation. We are in this world to have a purpose, first of all. So first we have to figure out what is our purpose, right, in this life, and then to utilize the skills that we have been given and that God has given us, right, and that we nurture and constantly evolve. And so utilizing them for the greater common good is something that I try to do in my humble capacity, of course. But I think the main component has been passion. Like I love what I do, and that has greatly helped me to navigate many situations.
Wonderful. Great answer. I want to kind of go back in time. So if we were to get in a time machine and go back to when you first decided, made a choice in your life to do IT cybersecurity, what is the story about it? What was day one for a young Mercedes to say, I want to do cybersecurity and this is the choice for my career?
I think it's a very valid point because sometimes there is some sort of stigma linked to cybersecurity careers, right? Or there is some sort of mystery, even, especially for us women or to the general public, right? Because if we look at the main statistics at a global scale, and of course different data sources will tell you different things, you will see that global statistics tell us that about 23-25% of the global workforce in cybersecurity is made up of women. But as I was saying, like my career and my journey has never been static. So I first started out in e-commerce back in 2012 in Spain. And during that time, I discovered the importance of enabling the secure digital infrastructure and the impact that it can have in terms of resiliency and the vulnerabilities that it can have as well, because it's like critical infrastructure. And so if at any given moment that e-commerce was, God forbid, down or hacked or had any sort of breach, that will of course have a tremendous impact that will impact financial losses, it will impact customer reputation, it will impact like brand reputation. So by that time, back in 2012, I had discovered like, wow, this is not just one isolated thing. Like cybersecurity is not just one isolated thing that is living in its own bucket. Like there are so many layers and so many components that affect that lack of or that actual resilience of the digital infrastructure. So that's what motivated me the most. And again, it was a journey because I was not specializing in cybersecurity per se, but I had like different roles in the beginning in e-commerce. I was a product manager, then I became like an e-commerce project manager. Then I moved on to another role as business development manager for different business lines here in Kuwait. And then I move on to the corporate world at one of the largest technology companies in the world, which is Microsoft, as a former generalist territory channel manager for small and medium businesses. And currently my general role, it's again more of a broad role, but that earlier exposure, what I came to realize in 2012 in Spain while working in e-commerce there, was that cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility, and the impact that it can have can literally affect all sorts of all ends of the chain. And we have seen this recently, right, with what happened with CrowdStrike and how the world was almost shut down for one day, from airports to electronic transactions to petrol stations. So that really speaks louder about the importance of having a resilient digital infrastructure nowadays.
Yes. Actually, you bring up a good topic there with CrowdStrike. A lot of folks, they want to just, when it comes to cyber, most executives just, they hire their people to just say, you handle it, just take care of it. They want someone else. And a lot of times when we do a service contract or when you have a software package, there's the terms and conditions, and a lot of people just click OK. When you install an app on your phone, you just say, okay, yeah, have the permissions, but no one ever thoroughly reads through those terms and conditions. And I often warn people, be fully cautious of the consequences and the risks that you still have, even though you may transfer the risk to a third party. whatever's written in your contracts, your terms and conditions are still law abiding. And I tell a lot of people that, everybody's saying, we'll wait for all these lawsuits to come out regarding CrowdStrike. But I tell most people, I said, there's probably multiple indemnity clauses that will hold CrowdStrike legally, not accountable for what happened. Now, is it, we talk about security practices that could be poor security practices. Yes, they admitted since that self-imposed, I guess, downtime, they did admit that they do have some poor practices in regards to certain types of patches. Now, with that being said, a lot of folks, when they have these automatic updates are great because it's a fire and forget action. You just say it's going to update itself automatically. Well, in this one case, because the vendor, which is CrowdStrike, did not thoroughly test this patch update, it took down the world, the largest outage of all time as of today. But will we be, immune to future outages like this? Of course not, because as long as people blindly hand over their security to a third party, it leaves the window of the consequence of this happening potentially again. But what I think businesses need to do is take a little bit more pragmatic approach to doing their own testing in their environments, because just because a vendor says a patch has worked with 100 systems or even 100,000 systems, your organization and business could be the one business that patch may throw other applications and systems off from working. So that's why every organization should have some level or degree of their own testing in their configuration management program. But not to get too into the weeds of the CrowdStrike issue, but I love that you brought that up because that's very current right now. We're talking about your career and your transition from being a manager in one part of an industry and then transitioning into cyber. There had to have been some websites, there had to have been some news sources and things that you were reading, plugged into. Could you recommend, like, if someone's watching this right now and they look to you, Mercedes, and let's say, they're in a career where they're not really feeling fulfilled, or they don't feel that their purpose is being served, and they're like, you know what, I think I could do cyber. What would be the websites, news pages, or any other online resources that you could recommend that they could go and start just getting into the know of cyber and understanding different components of cyber before they make that jump?
I think there are three components that I can break it down into. So the first one is curiosity. To be in cybersecurity or to succeed in any sort of role that you may have in the future, right, it requires to have a very curious mind. The second one will be to develop a growth mindset, and that a growth mindset acknowledges that learning does not stop once you leave your university or your place of studies. And it also sort of acknowledges, as per my interpretation of a growth mindset, that certain neural networks in your brain can be rewired. And that took me a long time to understand it, but it has really helped throughout my life. And the third one is, again, to do constant upskilling and reskilling. For instance, in 2021, I had done almost 40 courses. So that was an internal training back then, but I mean, I have that curiosity and passion, right, to elevate my skills and that use my skills for, again, the greater common good. So the good thing nowadays is that with the economy of scale and with the rapid deployment of 5G across pretty much all parts of Kuwait, if we're talking of Kuwait or even in the GCC or even in different areas, anyone can access to remote learning. And so LinkedIn, Coursera, and so on, they have great courses that are almost free and that can provide you with the tool to take on that next step in your career and to advance in your professional development of your skills journey, because I think it's more of a journey.
Okay. Well, if you do have any particular websites and news sources for cyber, you can always just send it to me, Mercedes, and I'll make sure I put it in the description of our podcast episode. So for those watching this, if Mercedes provides me links, they'll be in the description below. I do want to ask about another important topic because, I have connected with a lot of women in cybersecurity that are just phenomenal leaders within cybersecurity. And it's, being in the Middle East, in this region, it's sometimes can be, it used to be most people's perspective about the culture and the region is that it was kind of like a lot of glass ceilings for women in many different industries in the Middle East. But in cyber, from my limited exposure and experiences so far, I see that cyber is a industry where that glass ceiling doesn't, in my perspective, seem to exist or be as prevalent because we have a lot of great women in cyber in the Middle East. And I think that's counter to what most people like in the West perspectives are about, women being able to advance within certain industries. But what is your perspective given your career and your work here in the Middle East?
My perspective on,
Oh, your perspective on women excelling within cybersecurity within the Middle East region.
I think it's all in your mind, and that's why I was mentioning earlier on, like acknowledging that new neural networks can be built within your mind when developing a growth mindset is important. If we look at again different statistics, they will tell us different sort of things, right? As per a public research that I saw recently, and I think it was published by the World Bank, the Middle East and Africa region had around 6% and 12% of women in cybersecurity careers. Of course, we see a lot of talents being developed and a lot of great leaders getting the recognition that they deserve in the cybersecurity. And if I can bring up like one humble contribution that I have done to this field, last year I had the honor of creating here in Kuwait the first nationwide cybersecurity upskilling and reskilling initiative for women in the country. It was an awarded grant by the US Department of State through the US Embassy in Kuwait. And of course, I always have to thank the State Department and everyone at the US Embassy in Kuwait for such a tremendous honor of working with them on this very important initiative where we trained, upskilled and reskilled 50 talents in cybersecurity, and that of course fostered job creation by partnering up with different stakeholders in the private sector in Kuwait who have a tremendous role to play in contributions to the Vision 2035. So these were more of like smart economics, right? Rather than having women empowerment as a concept, right? Or as a claim. No, this is actually providing with the right skills at the right time and then providing with different opportunities by embedding different sort of strategic stakeholders to again foster job creation and to sort of tackle all the issues that may concern to women in cybersecurity.
Wonderful. And a year ago, I went to speak at the Kuwait Science and Technology School on behalf with an event related to the U.S. Embassy here. And when I was visiting the school, I was so pleased to see, by my rough estimate, I would say it was almost 40 to 50% women that were students at this science and technology school. So it was wonderful to see it because there is a skills gap in cybersecurity, and we need everyone involved in cybersecurity. So I love that cybersecurity is all inclusive. I always tell people if you can read and you can comprehend, you can do cyber. And so it's wonderful to see women are now coming into cybersecurity, especially I feel where most women say, oh, that's too technical. No, it's not too technical. It is very simple once you break it down piece by piece. So wonderful. Thank you for sharing your insight. I kind of want to do something that's a little fun. I do this with every episode interview where I kind of do what I call a speed round of questions and just answer as fast as you can, yes or no. There's no wrong answers. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. First question, cake or pie?
Depending on the cake or depending on the pie.
Okay. So, okay. Depends on which one. Okay. Let's do, is a hot dog a sandwich?
Hot dog.
Hot dog is a hot dog, is not a sandwich. Okay. Let's talk about your favorite flavor ice cream and why.
Mm, cookies and cream, most probably. I don't have a reason.
No, no
Maybe
reason, no
childhood
worries.
memories. Childhood memories, most probably.
Okay. Let's talk about what are some of your favorite books and favorite films?
So, a book that I have recently finished. It's called Reset Your Mind. and it's by a Spanish author called, his name is Mario Puig. I highly recommend it.
Okay.
And as far as one of my favorite movies is concerned, so again, one of my childhood favorites was Marie Antoinette by Sofia Coppola, because I loved all the scenery, the details, every single thing was very well taken care of. And I used to love history; it was my favorite subject. So,
Okay. And final speed question: Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars.
Star Wars. All right. Great answer. This is a moment where I'd like to turn over to you to discuss any like special projects, personal projects, anything that it doesn't necessarily have to be cyber related, but if you have any passion projects that you're working on that's not your day job, you could share that if you'd like.
Thank you, Jim. So as a passion project, in 2022, I had started a podcast. It's called Tapping into the Untapped, where I built bridges of meaningful conversations with global leaders all over the world. And the purpose was to create a safe and inclusive community for women to thrive. And so we were tackling all sorts of topics. It was not focused on cyber. It was all topics related to sustainable development and focusing on the SDGs by the United Nations by 2030. So we had leaders in climate, in technology, of course, in governance, in NGO. It was quite holistic as an approach. And it was wonderful because we were able to reach 12 countries as audience. And I'm very excited to announce here that season 2 will be relaunched very soon with new and more exciting guests. And so, yeah, the audience can stay tuned.
Oh, well, if you would please provide me the links where people can find your podcast, I will definitely include them in the description below. Well, we're getting towards the end of this episode, so I'd like to give you an opportunity. If people want to connect with you, to follow your career, or to follow, your insights and perspectives that you share on social media, what are some of your socials that you could share with us? And of course, I will include those links as well below.
Thanks, Jim. So I'm quite active on LinkedIn. It's a platform that I have been cultivating for many years now. And everyone can find me there with my name, Mercedes Vasquez. And then I have an Instagram as well, which is called Tapping into the Untapped _MV. And my podcast is on Spotify, and it's called Tapping into the Untapped.
Wonderful. Well, Mercedes, let's just this is our closing statements. And so I said earlier that if you could read and comprehend, you could get into cyber. But what would be your message if whether it's a young person, someone that's mid-career, or someone that's even in their senior level career that says, hey, I'm not fulfilled in my career, I want to make a change. No matter what age or career level the person's at that may be watching this podcast right now. And let's say particularly to women that don't feel that they can make the jump into the cybersecurity pool. If you're speaking to them right now, this is your opportunity to speak to someone that's not sure and doesn't know if cyber is right for them. What is the advice you would give them right now?
Just go for it. Trust your own skills. Have the confidence and develop new skills if needed. Because again, everything is changing so fast that we have to maintain up to date again to avoid that sort of digital divide that I was mentioning in the beginning of our conversation, right? That can have an impact in terms of jobs, but also in terms of the economy. So just go for it. If you have the passion and the drive to do it, go for it, and I'm sure they will excel at it.
Well, I have to just say it's been a pleasure having you on the podcast, Mercedes. She is an she's won awards, she's worn multiple hats in her career. And again, she is a testament that, again, if you just go for it, as she says, you could be in cybersecurity as well. So, Mercedes, thank you so much for being on a podcast today.